Hi, everyone. Welcome to Headlines. I'm Anita Sharma. The world is watching how Europe digests news that it did not get a seat at the table in Riyadh to discuss how to end the war in Ukraine, a country that is also not invited to the talks between the United States and Russia. Since U.S. President Donald Trump's return to power, geopolitical shifts have been rather dramatic. The Paris summit was hastily arranged after a series of scathing statements from the United States, including Vice President J.D. Vance saying in Munich that Europe needed to worry less about Russia and more about, quote, the threat from within. Joining me now to talk further about the Paris summit is Francisco Rocha Gonçalves. He is a political analyst and deputy mayor of Oeiras in Portugal. Francisco, thank you so much for being with us.
Hello, Anita. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Sir, let's start first with your reaction to the Paris summit that took place Monday and the unprecedented snub by the U.S., essentially keeping Europe and Ukraine out of the discussions in Riyadh.
Well, Anita, this is a new role that Europeans must adapt to. Donald Trump, contrary to the presidents before, or the administrations before, has made it clear, particularly with the speech from his Vice President J.D. Vance in Munich, that these are new times. He's now speaking directly. I believe that he believes firmly in bilateral meetings more than multilateral institutions. And what he wants to do, he wants to speak directly with Russia. He wants to negotiate directly with Russia, which increases Russia's role in the world. He recognizes Russia's role and Russia's importance. And what he has done in the last few days is saying goodbye to what we were hoping to reach in Ukraine for the last 3 or 4 years.
Francisco, let's talk a little bit more about Trump's so-called direct diplomacy style, if you will, where it seems that at any cost, he would want a deal straight away. Now, we know he's somewhat of a deal maker, and in the business world, the person who is so eager to get that deal is usually at a disadvantage. And in this case, one would basically surmise that Russia would be holding all the power and the cards in this negotiation if, in fact, Trump is pushing for a deal straight away. Your thoughts on that?
Anita, really what he wants is to have Russia on his side. He doesn't see and doesn't recognize the importance of Europe and of this conflict to his strategic perspective. And what he wants to do, he wants to bring Russia to his side in his strategic competition for the 21st century. And his strategic competition, it is with China. There are different approaches in the way, or in the American doctrine, of how they deal with the competition with his main adversary, the Republic of Communist of China. Donald Trump, what he wants to do, he wants to bring Russia to his side in order to keep Russia away from China. And he doesn't see the importance, he doesn't recognize the importance of this Ukraine conflict for them, for the United States. So he forgets about Ukraine, divides Ukraine, concedes the territory to Russia. I don't believe he's that much concerned about Putin's gain or about Russians' gain. He is concerned about the United States having the gain of having Russia on their side for their real competition for the 21st century. And if that costs the support of some of his Russia allies, so it is.
That segues beautifully.
Of his European allies, so it is.
That segues beautifully to a report you may have read. It came in the Telegraph. Apparently, they got their hands on a draft, on a contract that was sent to Kyiv last week. Essentially, a demand for, call it reparations, about $500 billion US in payback, quote unquote, from Ukraine for what the US has contributed so far to this war in Ukraine support. If that doesn't tell you, if that doesn't support what you've just said, I don't know what does, because that essentially does put the pressure severely on Ukraine to not only concede to Russia, if you will, but also the United States.
It's in fast track, Anita. Donald Trump and his board and his administration, they're in fast track to get a deal. They want to leave this conflict behind, and they want to bring Russia for the United States side in this conflict, is strategic conflict with China. That is his main goal, that is his main problem. He thinks he's losing time and he thinks he's losing resources in a conflict that he doesn't see of that much of importance for the United States.
Off the top, before I introduced you, Francisco, I talked about just how there's been a dramatic shift in the geopolitical sphere. Let's talk now about Europe, right? We're talking about the Paris summit, which was hastily arranged after J.D. Vance made rather scathing remarks, right? Back in Munich last week, he made it clear the U.S. was disappointed in Europe and essentially put an entire continent in a corner. Wow.
What J.D. Vance has done, and I believe that many of the people that are speaking about J.D. Vance's speech didn't listen to the integrity of it all. What I want to say is that J.D. Vance, his speech has different parts and different goals. In the first one, he made a revenge. I note that he said that if we were able to support Greta Thunberg for some years, you sure can support Elon Musk too. So if you have to, he remembered what Greta Thunberg was saying to the United States in the last few years. That's one. The second one is saying that the Europeans have to pay more. And the third one, another revenge, is said that the Europeans are not that keen to democracy principles as they think. He is saying that the enemy is within, not outside. And the enemy is within the systems that are not recognizing the voice of the people. This is the first time I remember that a president or a vice president of the United States has spoke in such terms about the democratic regimes in these partners in Europe. This never happened before, but I see this as a revenge of the way European leaders have spoke about Donald Trump in the last few years too, during the 2021 democratic process, the elections in the United States, and the way that Trump reacted to it, and the way the European Union spoke about it. And then he has said that you have to pay for your defense, and Europe is not that important to us. It's an acquired for them. They think as Europe as an acquired, it's not a problem, because Europe, if not united, is not a strategic competition for the United States. So their competition is in Pacific. And to have the Pacific competition solved, or at least in a way they can confront the increase of power from China, and I'm always speaking about China because if you can see, Anita, in the last few days, everyone is speaking a lot, except for the Chinese. They're not speaking. So what he is aiming is to have Russia on his side. Remember that Russia and China, they have an understanding, not only about their relation, but the changing of the international system. They're trying to change the international system, not only in military terms, not only in political terms, but also in economic terms. We have to see the big picture on this. And the big picture is not only about Ukraine. The fact is that they see Ukraine as dispensable. They see Europe as not a competition or a competitor for them. They take us for granted, and they want to deal with us bilaterally, because bilaterally we are weakened in our force. And this is the United States that we are facing right now. And we have to be pragmatic and realistic about this. And Europe must, if it wants to have a voice, everybody's complaining that they don't have a seat on the table. If everybody's saying right now, if you don't have a seat on the table, you're on the menu. So we are on the menu. And we are on the menu because we didn't took the decisions that we must have taken in the last few years.
So They're on the menu. It doesn't look appetizing for Europe right now. How
At least
does,
for us.
no, not at all. So how does Europe change its course, Francisco? How does it change its course with respect to diplomacy and foreign policy? How does it regain its strength and that power that it was once celebrated for?
It's quite complex, Anita, because if you remember, we have to be conscious that when we speak about the European Union,
Yeah.
and we have to realize that Europe in the last few years has lost the presence of Great Britain, European Union. And without Great Britain, if you look at European Union countries, they're all continental powers or continental countries. Which means that there is no more a perspective of global power in the European Union. The only Atlantic country nowadays in the European Union is Portugal. In Portugal, Portuguese, unfortunately, we don't have that much to say in which concerns the balance of power within the European Union. The difficulty is that we have more than 20 national interests,
That's incredible.
to converge.
Yeah.
And when you have, but that's something that we need to forget for almost every discussion. We are not speaking about a country, we are speaking about more than 20 countries.
That's right.
Putting that more than 20 national interests together, it's quite difficult. And you can see in the next few years, we will have problems understanding United States international politics, particularly because if they don't have two or more different national interests, they're not uniting.
And on the other side of the Atlantic,
strategy,
Francisco, on the other side of the Atlantic, you have an opposite situation, right? You have a Trump administration that controls the Senate and the House. So it's an entirely different situation, one that we're going to continue to see playing out in the days, months, years ahead. We have to leave it there. It was such a riveting discussion. I wish we had more time. We'll have to bring you back. But Francisco Rocha
I wish you had more time too, Anita. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for your time, sir. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
I'm Anita Sharma for A News. We'll see you soon.